So this is for lab 1. What we went ahead and did is we're doing the pre-screening and risk stratification lab, and what this does is it tells us our information of what we need to know when we are making a fitness assessment and putting together information about Scotty's past and what we can be aware of when we are giving fitness assessments and doing our procedures on him. So what I did, we're going to go through this one at a time, and the first thing we want to know is if he has any known cardiovascular, pulmonary, or metabolic disease. So do you have any diseases?
No.
Okay, then the next thing we want to know is if he has any major signs or symptoms of a disease, which includes ankle swelling, which is edema, or diabetes, anything like that. Do you have any signs or symptoms?
No.
Okay. So the next thing that we're going to move on to is cardiovascular risk factors. Now, risk factors include everything from gender to age and family history. We want to know if he has anything going on there that could trigger something while he's doing a fitness assessment. So he is younger than 45 years old, so he is not going to be in the risk category for age. Now, as far as family history, have you had any first-degree relative, as in a mother, a father, a daughter, sister, or brother, or uncle, something along those lines? Not an uncle, I'm sorry. Or son that has died before the age of a male at 55 or younger, or a female at 65 or younger?
Yes.
Okay, so he does have a family history of a sudden death before the age 55, and
It's my father.
his father. So we're going to mark that down as a risk stratification. We're also going to ask, are you a current smoker, or have you quit or smoked within the last 6 months?
No.
So that is not going to be a risk stratification. That's going to be, that will not count. So we're also going to ask if he has a sedentary lifestyle, which means that he does not participate in 30 minutes of moderate exercise 3 days a week. So are you active? Do you work out at least 3 times a week, 30 minutes or more?
Yes.
So that is not going to be a risk factor. So we're also going to see, while doing our measurements, if he is obese, which for him to be obese, his girth measurements have to be greater than or equal to 102 centimeters, or his BMI has to be equal to or greater than 30 kilograms. So when we figured out his BMI, what we did is we took his body weight in kilograms and we divided that by his height in meters squared. So for him, his body weight was exactly 200 pounds, and we divided that by 2.2 to get that in kilograms, which is going to be 90.9. Then we took his height in inches, which is 70 inches, and we're going to convert that to meters, which makes that 1.78. So whenever we were figuring out his BMI, it told us that his BMI is 28.68. Now the problem with BMI is it's not an accurate measurement for athletes, because somebody else without as much muscle mass as Scotty that weighs 200 pounds, this could be more accurate for them. But he's falling in the overweight category. But obviously by looking at him, he is not overweight and he is not obese. So we're going to put down that that is not a risk factor. Now we're going to ask if he is hypertensive. So hypertension is whenever the systolic blood pressure is greater than or equal to 140 millimeters, or the diastolic is going to be greater than or equal to 90. So you want this to be on 2 separate occasions. So if he went in at one time and it was 140 over 90, and the next time he went in it was 120 over 80, that is not considered to be hypertensive. So have you been to the doctor and been diagnosed with hypertension or pre-hypertension?
Yes.
Yes. So we're going to mark that down as a risk factor. Now we're going to see if his cholesterol levels are elevated, which is going to be when his LDLs, which are your bad cholesterol, you do not want them over 130. So anything over or equal to 130 is bad. For your HDLs, you want those greater than 40 because that's your good cholesterol. Anything over 60 is going to count as a negative risk factor. So we want to know if he has been to the doctor and if he's been diagnosed with having high cholesterol.
No.
No. So we're not going to count that as a risk factor. We're also going to ask if he is pre-diabetic or diabetic, or if he's ever been diagnosed with any form of diabetes. So in order to be diagnosed with diabetes, his intermittent fasting glucose, you do not want that greater than or equal to 100, because that is a form and positively associated with being diagnosed with diabetes later on. Are you diabetic or anything? Okay, so we're not going to count that as a risk factor, obviously, and so we are going to count his risk factors, and because he is hypertensive and because of his family history, that's going to put him in the moderate risk category, which is because he has 2 cardiovascular disease risk factors. Now, all that means is that he can participate in moderate intensity activity at a sub-max level without a doctor's slip and without doctor's permission. So we can do most of these labs without doctor's permission.